So as we look at the euro as a currency, a key element to it is the expansion of its use in the newer nations to accede to the European Union. All EU member states are obliged or required to adopt the euro other than Denmark and the UK. And the conversion to the euro is also a complicated, delicate process to merge national finances into the eurozone. So these are the current members in the eurozone and those who are obliged to adopt, mainly newer members. And as you can see, the UK and Denmark have clauses in their accession treaties that allow independence from the euro, basically because back in the time when they acceded to the European Union, there really wasn't a serious thought about the euro back in the 1970s. But the Danish krone is in the exchange rate mechanism too, which sets it in monetary policy of the European Union and basically tags it to the euro. So the European Central Bank aids the Commission to determine the readiness of a nation who is going to join the euro at that time. And basically what happens is that the National Bank will hand over control of the monetary policy to the European Central Bank. And it all deals with this conversion criteria that the European Central Bank uses. And there's basically 4 different elements. So the first one is price stability, which is based on the inflation rate, and it just can't be more than 1.5 percentage points above the rate of the 3 best performing member states. So this is a comparative analysis again. And then the second one is the public finances, which says that government deficit cannot be more than 3%, and government debt cannot be more than 60% of the GDP. The durability of the convergent is basically just looking at long-term interest rates compared to other EU members for an at-the-time assessment, and it just tries to give you price stability. And then the exchange rate stability is with ERM2, which a candidate country for the euro must be in for 2 years without severe tensions before it can officially adopt the euro. So now we're going to go into a little bit of a deeper exploration of 2 cases with euro adoption in Sweden and Poland. Sweden acceded to the EU in 1995, which was 20 years ago, shockingly. In September 2003, there was a referendum to not adopt that ended in not adopting the euro by a 56-44 margin. And Sweden is frightened, being a welfare state, that it may be weakened by the overall changes between going into the euro, which has been a weaker economy than it, which in 1994, when Sweden was in accession talks with the EU, its economy was in big trouble, but Sweden's economy is growing at 1.5% compared to 0.5% in the Eurozone, and Swedish unemployment is almost 3 points lower than the Euro area. Another issue that people, when they went to the polls, found was sovereignty. Sweden is a very independent identity state, which fretted off the argument by a lot of people that the euro would help secure peace in Europe. But Sweden has not been in a war for over 200 years, which makes that argument completely not legit. The Swedish economy is far better than the Eurozone average right now, and finances have significantly improved. And the wealthy drove the vote, which 75% of people in Stockholm's richest suburb voted in favor of joining the euro, while 18 to 30-year-olds voted more heavily against joining the euro than any other age group, and more of the middle class basically was the end of the euro talks. But yet, Sweden remains committed to the European Union, with over 60% of voters wanting to remain in the EU, which is more than first voted to join in 1994. So the question here is the monetary union without a common currency better for struggling economies, like as we saw with Sweden being a vast improvement without the common currency? So the second case study that we're going to talk about is Poland, which is a kind of a yes but no scenario. 2004, Poland acceded into the European Union, which was surprisingly 11 years ago already. And in 2004, over 84% of people voted to support EU membership in polls. And now in May of 2015, the polls show that only 25% of Poles support Euro adoption. And there's a lot of public discontent with the Euro, and that is because of the little benefit that it sees in the Euro. And the article, as linked below, states that since early 2007, Poland's economy has grown by 33% compared to 4% for the entire Eurozone, and that public debt stands at 50% of GDP for Poland compared to the Eurozone average of 90%. And many Poles also feel that prices would rise if they adopted the Euro, while wages would not, similar to what we see in the United States currently. And this has been a large issue for President Bronislaw Komorowski, who is running for re-election but has had to ditch the issue. He was a pro-Euro guy, and because of public opinion, he basically had to ditch the issue in his campaign, which shows you how much public discontent there really is for the Euro in Poland. So what is the future for adoption? Romania is set to convert on the 1st of January of 2019, and this is because they are joining ERM2 on the 1st of January of 2017, which there needs to be that 2-year process in ERM2 for a country as set in the convergence criteria. Sweden, just a little bit more. There is a pending referendum coming up, but Sweden deliberately fails the criteria because they require a referendum to join ERM2 instead of just joining ERM2, which would be like an automatic fast track, kind of what like you see with the TPP here in the US with the Pacific Trade Agreement. There's a kind of Sweden is going to require the referendum, so as a kind of just like a roadblock to deliberately fail the criteria, so that the EU basically just has to go, okay, we'll live with it. And then there's a lot of targets in other countries, the Czech Republic and Croatia in 2019, and then Hungary in 2020, because they are set to join the ERM at some point in these next little bit, but there just hasn't been anything really official. And then Bulgaria, the hopes hasn't been really talked about with Bulgaria, but it's been talked about without the EU, because Bulgaria is a recovering democracy in Eastern Europe, and it is one of the larger Eastern European members, and in that Balkan area, the European Union sees it as a stability asset, so there's hopes that by 2020 to 2022, Bulgaria will be able to adopt the Euro. So that's about it on the expansion of the Euro, and it will be very interesting to see what the future for the Euro is as we move into the mid to later part of the 20th century as we all grow old.